his labs, and he's got some insider secrets that it's really not secrets, but a lot of drivers don't know about it. He had a company where he was doing drug screens for truck drivers. So I'm gonna let him just take the floor here and explain, tell him who you are, what you've been doing, and all those stuff you told me about those false positives and stuff. So let's get into it.
All right. Hey, Sean. Thanks for having me on. All right. So my name is John, and I am the current slash former owner of Fastest Labs in North Palm Beach. Basically, we are a drug collection company. We get contracts out from DOTs, truck driving companies, all this other stuff to drug test truckers. Um, so as I've been doing this over the years, I realized that as I'm questioning drivers about if they know their DOT rights about drug testing, 99% of the drivers don't realize that there are fail safes built into the system to help protect their CDL
Yeah, I
licenses.
see. When you was telling me that, I didn't even realize that. That's crazy.
Yeah, I've made a point for every driver that I've ever talked to, if they've come in for drug testing or even at post accident sites, because I've gone out to the truck wrecks, I've gone to the hospitals, I've gone to wherever the drivers are,
Wow.
and I've had to test them on the spot. And I always make sure that they know their rights, because no one likes to do drug testing. But let's face it, our industry or your industry,
Yeah.
my soon-to-be industry,
Right.
needs it.
Right.
It's important. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over what a proper drug test is real quick, because that's
Okay.
the simple part. The
Yes.
second half is what you need to know. If something goes wrong with your test, what course of actions do you have? So driver comes in, they usually have their company sent them in with a piece of paper or a form or a barcode, or however. There's a dozen ways to do it. When you go into the company, they're either going to give you a paper form test or a digital test, and it's the same test. What's important though is the stickers at the bottom of the form. They're going to be, I have examples. There's stickers on the bottom where you have to
Right.
initial. Okay.
Yep.
If you're doing a digital copy, it's going to look like this, but there's always
Yeah.
going to be two
I've never seen
stickers.
the digital one. I've always done the other one. So.
Drivers, listen very carefully. Do not sign those initials till you watch them pour your sample into the containers. Do not initial those labels. This is a safety check and a security protocol for you. So here's the thing: you fill out the top half, they bring you in the back, they give you the cup, you go pee, you come back, you set that cup in front of the person doing the test. This is the important part. You physically have to watch them pour your sample into two different vials. If they tell you to set your sample in this basket and walk away, it is not a valid test.
Wow.
If you sign those labels before you watch them do this, guess what? They can fake the test.
Wow.
Here's what happens when you put your sample into that basket. If they can get it confused with someone else's sample, you've signed those labels, they send it off to the lab, you have no recourse.
Wow.
So, So here's the thing: you come out of the bathroom, you set the cup down. You've not signed those labels, so now they have to, in front of you, pour your sample into bottle A and bottle B. This is important.
Right.
Once they do that, they take those two labels and they seal the bottles, just like you see here. At that point in time, that's when you initial the bottle. So you know that your sample has been put into this cups. You've signed the label stating you watch them pour your sample into the cup and have sealed it in front of you. If you sign those labels before they do this part, you have
Yeah.
no recourse.
Wow.
So then they put your paperwork into a bag, they put your samples into the bag, they seal the bag in front of you, which they have to do according to DOT regulations. Then they
Okay.
send it off to the shipper. If they've done it right, you now know that your paperwork that you signed and filled out is in that bag. Your samples that are yours, because you watched them pour it from your cup into things, sealed it with your labels. You signed it saying you've seen it, and they sent that off to the lab. Now, what happens at the
Wow.
lab is military precise. So that is a normal test. When I tell drivers never sign those labels till you watch them pour it in, because if you don't watch it, You don't know what happens. Now,
Wow.
here's everyone's nightmare. You've done a drug test. Your company
Okay.
now calls you and say, "Hey, you failed your drug test." And you're
Wow.
like, "There is no way." They're saying, "Sean, you failed this drug test for Frank's Red Hot Sauce." And you're like, Rosedale, I've never done Frank's Red Hot Sauce in my entire life. There is some there is something wrong.
Right.
Now, your company doesn't have to tell you the next part. They don't have to.
Mm.
It's not required this. Your trucking school did not teach you this.
No, they
This is why
didn't.
we're
They
this
didn't.
is why we're watching, you know, Sean here. So,
Drivers, he's about to tell you, drivers out there who's had false positive tests that lost their job or could have lost their. Some lost them, some he got to say. But very important this next part, which y'all are what he's about to tell you, because your school did not teach you this. So go ahead, bud.
all right, so here's what happens. You come back and you have a positive test. You know for a fact that it's false. That paperwork that they gave you at the end has a phone number on it. You're going to call that phone number and said, "I want to activate my right as a DOT driver to have my second sample be tested." So here's what happens. When you send these two vials to the lab, vial A is tested. That is what your test is on. Vial B is stored for 1 year, 365 days in a very specific environment, very cold. It's there. When you have that false positive and you call that phone number and you say you want vial B tested, here's what happens. That false positive is deleted from the system, it's deleted from the consortium, and it's deleted from the clearinghouse. So there is no record,
Wow.
except for the hard copy, that you had a positive test. Now, your employer can do nothing with your job while you've activated this process. They cannot fire you.
So so like you're saying this, so if you had a false positive, and you know in your heart, you know if you're negative, you know if you're positive, but you have a false positive, what you're telling me is that I could call in and say, listen, I know that's not right. Okay.
Correct.
And you're saying they cannot fire you right there on that day.
No,
They can't just kick you out of the truck on that first one.
no, because here's the thing. DOT says they have to have a way to make sure that this doesn't happen. So you call the company, the laboratory, you say you want to activate the sample B protocol. Here's what happens. They're going to charge you $195. That is a rate that the federal government says this is what it's going to cost. The driver pays this. But compared to losing your license, what is $195? So
Exactly. Jesus.
Vial B is now taken out of the storage unit. It is now packed into a box with dry ice and is sent to a completely separate, different, and independent laboratory to be retested. Because what's the point of retesting with the laboratory that messed it up in the beginning? So now this,
Exactly. Exactly.
so this cup goes to a secondary laboratory that's being retested. They get the sample and they run the test. They're like, okay, it's all negative. So they release your drug test back to Rosedale
Wow.
completely back, and they say, "Congratulations, you've passed your test. There's no THC, no nothing.
Wow.
Now you have a clean drug test. Cost you $195, but you've protected your license, and you
Why
got
are they
not
not telling people this?
don't know. But here's the thing: if this comes back positive or something, you're done. You're in the SAP program mandatory for 1 year.
Yeah,
There
exactly.
is
Exactly.
there is
Well, you
no
should
extra
be. You should be.
there yet there's no extra tips. Now, I had a million miler come in here about 4 weeks ago. He was with Werner. He came in crying. His wife was yelling at him. He lost his job. He failed his test. He happened to get a SAP counselor that I work with down the road, and she sent him to here. This was his first test with the SAP program. I said, "Well, okay, so you failed your test. Yep, okay, that's bad. So what did vial B say?" He goes, "What do you mean vial B?" "Well, you know the two samples you put in the two cups?" He goes, "I remember that." He goes, "Did you activate your protocol to have it retested?" "I didn't know I could have it retested." He
Wow.
called. He had the paperwork. He called the lab. They packed it up. 3 weeks later, he came back in here with a rack of ribs and potato salad and coleslaw and all the trimmings because his test came back 100% negative. He was a million-mile driver for Werner. Werner paid him his back pay, and he got to keep going through the road. He did not lose his license.
So
He had
they
no
actually gave
negative.
him. They actually gave him. They had to give him back pay.
Yeah, because
Wow. So
they did a knee-jerk reaction and fired him right on the spot.
okay.
But it was
So if they
but it
do a
was the
knee jerk
drive.
reaction league, they have legal consequences about that. But it's the driver's responsibility to activate that file B, right?
Yep. Now, this is very important. So, a lot of companies now are hair testing. Hair testing is not DOT.
Right.
Hair testing is now
Okay.
they're doing hair testing now in urine. So the hair test gives them 90 days worth of history. What did you do before we hired you? Trucking companies are looking at that now. So drivers need to be aware. So now the new test is coming out for oral fluid, not urine anymore. It's the same protocol. But instead of two labels, you have one label. You sign that one label goes to the lab. It's in a fluid. They take the oral sample out, they test that, they put the fluid into the fridge. This way, that is your B test. So if you say, no, I did the oral test, there's no way it could came up positive. Okay, it's the same protocol. It's $195. They take the fluid that it was sitting in, send it to the lab to have it retested. If it comes back negative, you stay between the lanes. Comes back positive, congratulations, you've just lost your license. You're in the SAT program.
So well, let me ask you about the hair follicle. If somebody did a hair follicle and they come back positive, does that go in the clearinghouse?
No, hair follicle tests.
You don't have to go. You don't have to go to SAT program if
No,
you fail a hair follicle.
a hair follicle test is used for pre-employment. They want to know if you were a user before you came to them. Currently, the DOT
Can
doesn't.
they? Can they? Can they? I'm sorry, I didn't interrupt you. Go ahead.
Now it's pre-employment. If it's pre-employment, they can disqualify you for that negative for that
Right.
positive hair test. Even if you had a clean urine test, they can still disqualify you for employment. That is their right. But as far as the
Right.
DOT is concerned, hair testing is not allowed yet. They're talking about it, but
Okay.
I don't see it anytime soon because you cannot pinpoint when in that 90-day window you did those hair
Right.
testing.
Right. This is some good information, drivers. If y'all don't know about this, this is something you definitely need to keep in your back pocket because how many drivers over the how long you been doing this?
I've owned this lab for 3.5 years, and I have tested. I looked it up. I've tested 788 drivers. Of those 788
Okay.
drivers, I've had 127 positive tests.
Wow.
Of that
Wow.
127
Okay.
positive tests, I've had 70 activate the B protocol. And out of those 70s that
Wow.
activated the protocol, 67 of them came back clean tests. Think about that.
Wow. So we're looking at like
67.
30% chance of pos. God,
Yes. So,
that's a
it,
serious thing. These are false positives that are ruining people's lives, and they don't know about this Plan B.
no,
And I mean, I would die if they was to call me today and said I fell for cocaine or meth. I'd be like, hey, I drink Red Bull, and I ain't doing all that stuff. But I wouldn't known about that. If you hadn't told me about that, I wouldn't have known about that. This is very valuable. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing this because the trucking world don't really. I don't think that a lot of them know about it. Like you said.
no, no, they don't teach it in schools. Most companies
Wow.
don't tell you about it. Now, I actually called two companies when I knew that we were going to do this and asked if they told their drivers about the Cup B and with the protocols. And of those two companies, I talked to the safety directors. They did not know about it either. So,
Wow. Not even the safety directors.
so, but,
Wow. This is
but,
interesting, man. This is awesome news, man. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing this. I mean, it's sad that there's false positives. Now, and I'm not disclaiming to go out there and do drugs. If you do drugs and you do think you need to, you don't need to be out here on the road. But if you're a non-drug user and you're a sober driver, and for you to get hemmed up and to lose your life, your family, your livelihood, I mean, yeah, and pay thousands of dollars for some reason, you definitely need to know about that. And the percentage that you're talking about is crazy, man. That's crazy.
yeah, it's a very, very high percentage. Now, I could do a whole nother hour on SAP
Right.
testing and stuff like that, but that's a different animal.
Right. Yeah, Yeah, let's do a
Sorry about
video
that.
on that too one day. Let's do a video on that one too. I'm hoping you're gonna come over to Rosedale. He's actually giving it up coming over here to start driving soon. He's about to go to you're about to start CDL school, right?
I start CDL school in 19 days. I graduate CDL school on April 29th, I think it is.
Awesome.
And 2 weeks
Awesome.
before I graduate, I'm going to call you. I'm going to call Tina, and hopefully there's a spot available for me so
Yeah,
I can join the Rosedale
hopefully you'll be the
family.
truck. Hey, that sounds
Yeah.
great, man. Hey, I got to get back on the road. I got to go pick up a beer load. I'm out here in Colorado, but thanks for taking the time to share this with everybody. And hey, if this helped y'all out, please put a link in the comments or say something. Let them know that it helped you out. If you didn't know about it, if this is say in the comments, I didn't know about it, or if you did know about it, say I already knew about it. Either way, let me know in the comments today. Hey, thanks for joining, boss. I'm gonna get out of here. I'll holler at you in a little
Not a,
bit.
all right. Talk to you, sir. Have a good one, man.
See you, boss. All right, bye.